definition of inspiration versus the definition of motivation. The difference is one comes from your heart and from your mind and what is, what inspires you as an individual and how you bring that and show up both to the workplace and everywhere you go in life. And motivation is about the carrot and the stick. It's a much more tangible metric, but the value of inspiration is the excitement, the joy, the caring that comes along with it.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
Hello and welcome to the Break Free podcast. I am your host, David Mansella. I love to do this introduction all the time because people need to know what this podcast is about. And we're getting so many listeners every day that you guys need to know. This podcast is focused on honoring entrepreneurs that are changing the world for a better place, especially during these troubled times. And today we have Eric with us. Brother, welcome to the show.
David, a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Fantastic. Eric, for the audience, can you give me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so full name is Eric Simmons. I am the CEO of Asigra, which is a software company that's been in the backup space for 37 years. And the company's based out of Toronto. I'm also based out of Toronto, but it's a global business.
You're in Toronto? I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's so, we're neighbors.
I really you're based out of Toronto as well.
The States. Yeah, I'm in Kitchener-Waterloo. So about an hour away.
Spent a lot of time in Kitchener.
Yeah? How come?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of work with the incubators out of the Innovation Center in Waterloo, and worked with a number of startups as well to help them grow their business, develop their business. But I had space when I was at Rogers. We took space in the Innovation Center at Communitech, as well as when I was at Canadian Tire. So spent a lot of time up in Waterloo.
That's amazing. So let's take advantage to honor the region because people only know about Silicon Valley without knowing that there is many innovation centers around the world. Kitchener, Waterloo, Toronto, we call it the Golden Triangle because that's where most of our startups happen in Canada, right? It's amazing because nobody knows, and there is so much technology comes out of that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
When did you get involved in tech and business in tech?
Yeah, funny enough, I would say I was not a particularly tech-savvy individual in my younger years. Was not necessarily interested in a career in tech, but I graduated university. I had sales experience, and when I went out to get my first job, I ended up speaking to a tech company, Competence Systems Limited, which is one of the larger resellers value-added resellers in Canada. And I ended up getting a job doing sales in the tech industry under the premise that I would learn all about tech. So, reading Tech for Dummies, everything about Ethernet, token ring, RAM, hard drive space. I started from ground zero.
How long ago was this?
Sorry?
How long ago was this?
Probably coming close to about 30 years ago.
Wow. Isn't it beautiful? I was just off we have a podcast for technologists, for leaders in technology, and we're talking about with this gentleman, and he's from our era, and how blessed we are that we saw the rise of technology, right? We saw the rise of cell phones, tablets, laptops, into AI now, and it's been so fast, isn't it?
Incredibly fast transition. I think, that was one of the nice pieces, and I think one of the areas that allowed me to develop a career in tech is that it is changing so quickly, and how you leverage technology to solve business problems over the years has changed and has become far more comprehensive in terms of the ways and different elements that are available to solve those problems. And so, as my career developed and as I got into different companies and, we realized the value of different technologies, we were able to implement those and, do more than we were able to, in previous years. And you continue to see that evolution as we move into AI and machine learning. And I guess the new models that have made AI readily available to everybody and not just to larger organizations that have the wherewithal to bring in, data and, analytic specialists or AI and machine learning specialists. You're seeing a lot more integration across simple businesses that are able to use existing AI, again, to transform their business. So I've seen a lot of unique things over the years. And I think from my perspective, if you're in the tech industry, you really have to be a lifelong learner. I mean, you have to be somebody that enjoys embracing what's going to happen next, and thinking through how those give you a competitive advantage or allow you to solve customer problems in a far more interesting and simple way than you may have been able to in the past.
And that's one of the things that entrepreneurs like you and I have. If you're involved in technology, you have to fall in love with change.
Yes.
If you fall in love with change, you have a high probability of success, because traditional businesses, they go into trouble, and some of them get extinct because they are not willing to change with the times and with the technologies, isn't it?
Yeah, and you find that with entrepreneurs that are owners of businesses that have entered in at a certain period of time and took the business, it could even be 20, 30 years of a great business that's been very successful, but they hit a period of time where their comfort level around change and what's happening in an industry, begin to separate, and they become more fixed on what they're comfortable with, when really, the business is shifting. In order for them to continue to be successful and continue to operate successfully and be competitive, they have to change with the market. And so I do see that risk, reward, and openness to change, change within different people over time, and as they get settled or more comfortable in a business. And again, I've seen the most successful businesses are the ones that feel change as a constant and as something to be embraced, and as something to be looked at, not just in their industry, but across multiple industries as well. Because what's particularly interesting is the rate of change and the adoption of new technologies in different industries, and the ability to see what's happening in another industry where a change is occurring that is really, very transformative for that industry, but maybe hasn't been percolated across other industries yet. But taking the learnings of that and then beginning to apply that early in, in an industry that hasn't adopted it yet, can also allow for that innovation and differentiation, and for you to capture early market share and beat the competition. So I find that an important area for people to look at as well, is a much more broad scope of where technology has been implemented, and how do I then use that concept to apply to the industry that I'm in.
Incredible. Eric, you got hired for a sales job in a high-tech company, and you had no knowledge about tech. How do you survive that, brother? That's hard.
It
I
is.
mean, what I did was hard too. I was a technologist that had to learn how to become a salesperson as an entrepreneur. But the tech part is the hardest, I think. Tell me, how do you figure that out?
Well, it was easier a couple of things. I mean, it was easier to start because the area that I joined in technology was really about learning about hardware and software. So, I'd say, it was the foundation for everything I've done in life. I did a lot of reading. I mean, I got books out, and I started with, quite honestly, really nice books with good images that would explain what the different technologies were, how you use them, why they're important, and then you expand your knowledge and literature, to more complex, elements of networking or, application development or whatever the areas that you're going into. So that allowed me to pick up a bit on the technology side. And then I think what really did it was continuing to explore as new technologies were developing and taking a business perspective on those technologies. So, a simple example is I went out to meet with Union Gas as an example. This is early in my career. I was a spin-off of Compugen, was a Compugen Professional Services, which later became Liberty Technology Services. They did infrastructure consulting services as well as application development and custom application development. And my boss turned to me one day and he said, "Eric," he goes, "what do you know about web portals?" I said, "First I've heard of them." He goes, "Well, you have 2 weeks. You're presenting to the CIO of Union Gas, and you need to put a strategy in place that will be valuable to that organization."
Wow.
So
you must learn very fast.
I learned about web portals. I learned about the oil and gas industry, what their competitors were doing, understood where they were behind in terms of what they were doing. And then, we presented something to them that they really liked. And then I met with all the key stakeholders across the business who, again, told me about the core challenges from a business perspective that they were trying to solve, what their competition was doing. And then I was able to use the knowledge that I had gathered around what's possible to do with technology to streamline operational efficiencies in that space. And so, for a company like Union Gas, their core challenge was that their competitors came out after them, had much newer technology, had a single system with an integrated view into everything that their customers wanted to do with them. Union Gas had 4 or 5 different disparate systems. So as a customer, I'd have to go into 4 or 5 different systems to look up where my gas is being stored along the pipeline, how much I have, things like that. If I had processes that were in place, again, I'd have to look in multiple systems. And so, in looking at a web portal, which was really a simple view into all those elements of the supply chain and what needed to be accomplished and when, I was able to put those into a view that would allow people access to all the disparate systems behind them in a single pane of glass, and allowed us to not only achieve that single pane of glass their competitors were having, but to take it a step further and look at now how do we simplify the process that even their competition is having trouble solving. And so that allowed us to, win some fairly significant projects in that space. And again, in anything that I do, it's always about learning about the industry, learning about what technology is available, and how do you apply it in unique ways.
It's beautiful, Eric. And one of the things that I just figured out is that I'm a man of faith, so I am a lover of Jesus Christ. And I believe that we are put in this world to learn how to love. This is the only reason why we're living. And I'm saying this first because what I'm about to say might hurt some people. Okay. But if you're a programmer or you're a network engineer or whatever, if you're in technology, the reason why most people in technology don't make it to the next level and they stay where they are for most of their life. By the way, this is the great majority of technology people. They stay where they are for the majority of their life. Yeah. Or in some form or shape, they just evolve with the technology, but doing exactly the same thing. For me, that's kind of boring. But they don't take that next step because they are not willing to do what you just mentioned. What you just mentioned is burn the bridges and going and conquer the island, regardless of you don't know how to get back.
Mhm.
And having that mentality, having that step of faith has allowed you to be the great leader that you are now. Because it requires a lot of effort into trying to figure out beyond the technology, trying to finally understand that the technology is just a piece in the puzzle of serving your client the best way you can, so you can save them as much money as you can and also advance their company as much as you can. And that's the love part. Yes, you're going to get gratification through payment and money, but the whole job of your business is to make your client better.
Yeah.
And if you're in love with your technology and just with your little piece of technology, yes, you can live there. We need you. But if you want to get to the next level, you have to be willing to learn and risk and provide a business context, not only a technology context, isn't it?
And I think what you said about risk there is critical. There's two core aspects and two core challenges as it relates to risk in organizations. And I think the larger the organization, the risk profile becomes diminished in many organizations and their willingness to accept risk. Many organizations I went into, I found a lot of people like to follow the status quo. They know that these things have been done, they've been successful, they can see their 3 to 5% year over year growth if they continue to do the same things that they've done for years because they've seen some degree of success. Two things I learned early on in my career, and the perfect example was the leader that I had met with. Who said, Eric, what do you know about web portals? You're doing a presentation to the CIO. It seems a bit flippant to say, okay, Eric, you're doing it. He had faith that if he pushed me outside my comfort zone and pushed me outside the limits of where I was comfortable or in even my current understanding, that I would step up and learn and do what I needed to do to be successful in that endeavor that pushed me beyond my comfort zone. And I think for people to really be successful in a career and again, to move up through the ladder and move into different areas and opportunities, or even potentially different industries, you yourself have to have a comfort that you're willing to take certain smart risks, but risks that go beyond probably what the average person in a company is willing to do. That's the only way to truly expand your own growth, but as well move beyond what solutions other people are going to find to those problems. And when you do that, to your other point about love, the passion, the excitement, the love of your customer, of your own solution, of your own ability to work with a group of people to achieve a goal is critical. And I'll take love a step further. I mean, I do believe that, and it's probably not the most politically correct thing to always say, but I do believe that there's a great value in love in the workplace. To love the people that you work with, to care about the people that you work with, to inspire them to feel a love and a passion and inspiration about what they're doing, changes the nature and capability of what an organization is able to achieve as well. And then as a leader, you have to give people the permission to take risks and to support them in those risks. Because, something I've done in every job that I've had in my career is to say, we're going to do these things. I'm telling everybody, we're going to push the envelope from a risk standpoint. I'm not prepared to do the same thing that everybody else does, because we're going to see better results if we push, and think outside the current parameters, current box. And so I've always said, I will stand, and if anyone is getting fired for the decision that we're making, at the end of the day, it'll be me. I'll stand in front of whichever leader and tell them that I was 100% supportive of taking this risk, so that you as an individual employee can feel comfortable suggesting and executing on those risks. And together, we're going to have far better ideas, much more wins than losses, because obviously we're going to put the appropriate governance and consideration behind those risks. But we're going to get 30% year over year growth, 40% year over year growth, and do it in a way that, again, creates that love, passion, and inspiration. So I'm very much aligned with your way of thinking.
And people say, when okay, when normal people say, why do you want so much growth? Why is this? Well, you know why? Because of what I just said. If you don't have the growth, how can you have a career path for your people so they can take risks and go to the next level? It's impossible. If you stay tiny, people have to keep doing the same thing they are doing forever because you are tiny. How can you pay salary increases if you don't grow?
Right.
And also allow risk. I think you're right. The bigger you are, the more willing, the more risk adverse you become because you can make a big mistake and it's not going to be a big deal. But if you're a tiny company, you make a big mistake, you go out of business.
Yes. No, it's true. And I've seen tons of companies that haven't taken those risks and have gone out of business as a result.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful environment. Thank you, Eric, for sharing that, because one of the things to become a great entrepreneur, a great CEO, is to create an environment where people are willing to risk, and it's okay as long as the risk and the failure teaches them something.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like have those guiding rails where you have some risk tolerance so that you can grow.
Yeah.
It's the only way, right? It's amazing, Eric. Thank you. So, when was the first time that you, after your sales job, when the first time that you started growing in your leadership career, when you were responsible for people?
So just shortly after I left Liberty Technology Services, I was there for about 6 years between Compugen and Liberty. So maybe post 6 years into my career, I actually left and, along the entrepreneurial spirit side of things, I had an opportunity to buy a local courier company. And I ended up buying a third of a local courier company. So delivering packages same day within, Toronto, GTA, and outerlying areas. And I took on the responsibility of about 150 couriers and probably about 25 office staff to start. And so that was my first. I was more or less the CEO. I ran the company. I was the owner of the company. That was the first opportunity to really begin to implement the things that I had learned from other leaders and managers that I wanted to do within my own company.
That's beautiful. And what a great opportunity to jump into business. I bet it was very hard.
It was, again, it was a lot of fun. I'll be honest. It was less challenging than I expected it to be. And my background in technology and business operations was very valuable. And what I did was I helped create a software application that solved for a whole bunch of challenges that existed within the courier industry, and very much streamlined them, and gave us a huge competitive advantage. So we won, I think within my first 18 months or less, I'd won 60 new accounts.
Wow.
Great growth. We were able to drive huge operational efficiencies, dropping our office staff from 15 to 10 people by creating a software that gave a lot of self-service to companies. So we created a great differentiated value proposition in the market, and used it to grow the business significantly. And I was an entrepreneur, and it was my own business. So I would, get on for courier in Toronto. The downtown cores where a lot of the big businesses are, where a lot of legal, accounting, engineering firms exist, and they send courier all over the city to different constituents. I would go down to the office tower, First Canadian Place or TD Towers, stop at every single floor and ask to speak to the person in charge of courier. I would also get out lists of all the law firms or engineering firms or advertising agencies, cold call into them myself, and look to book meetings and get new customers on board. So it was a great value in using the sales experience that I'd had, the willingness to cold call, which a lot of people don't like doing, but I actually found it really enjoyable once you start doing it.
Wow.
And then,
That's the first time I hear say that.
well, it becomes it becomes very rewarding. I mean, if you own a business and you're able to yourself go and find new customers all on your own, not relying on anybody else, and you're able to convert those customers at a high rate to work with you, there's not much that you can't accomplish. And tying that in with the software that we built, it was, early days. We had the ability to get real-time signature and timestamp of when your package was delivered, who signed for it. Again, I listened to our customers, and when they said they had, these are the 10 problems that we still had today, I got rid of those problems for them and made them streamlined and available in real time. And so, it was a great conversation I could have with, the courier, the businesses around, Toronto and GTA to win their business. So it was a lot of fun, I have to be honest.
That's amazing, Eric. Another great lesson for the listeners. People, if you want to have your own business, or if you're struggling in your own business and you're the CEO or you're the founder or you're the owner, figure out how to sell. Because without sales, word of mouth is great, but it can only take you so far. If you want to grow exponentially, you need to figure out how to sell. You need to know that there is ways where you can actually do cold calling if you don't have the resources to create a great marketing campaign. Because now I have the God-given blessing that I run multiple businesses with other partners, but I'm still on my main business because we are grown. We have a big budget for marketing, and we know how to get the leads, and then we have the sales team that responds to that lead. But it took us forever to get there. At the beginning, it was only me, like you were saying. Yeah. And if I didn't figure out how to sell, the company wouldn't survive. And you just told us how to do it. It's like,
well, I'll give you my best piece of advice.
No's, but
my best piece of advice for somebody looking to get into cold calling and sales is to buy a book called How to Make Hot Cold Calls.
How to make hot phone calls.
Hot cold calls.
Okay, hot cold. Yeah. Oh, I never heard about
it. So it's a fantastic book. It's not very thick. I don't know, maybe it's 60 pages or something like that. But it is a guide that teaches you how to make cold calls. I used it, and it works extremely well. You create your own, dialogue and style, but it walks you through all the steps necessary. And then it teaches you the things that people, might think are silly or don't make sense. But, the tone of your voice, the confidence that you have on the phone call, smiling, even though they couldn't, we weren't doing video calls back then. So just smiling behind the scenes creates a different reception from who you're talking to when you put in that phone call. And making sure that very quickly you understand what it is that might be of value to them, and if they, and you build a series of, objection handling as well, because there's probably 5 objections that people have in any industry, no matter what you're doing. And if you have a really good answer to those 5 questions, you're able to determine if there's interest or value that you can bring to this customer. If there isn't, great, call it out as it's not a good fit, wish them the best, and if things change in the future, great. But then you've got a quick no as well, which is almost equally as valuable as a quick yes, right? So it's how you spend that time, in the most efficient manner. But that book was a great early guide on how to do it effectively.
That's beautiful. I have interviewed over 170 people in this podcast. And one of them reminds me of you. This gentleman had a financial advisory company in the States. And he says when he started, all he had was a phone book and a phone.
Yeah.
And he said he made 3,000 phone calls, and now he has a multi-million-dollar business. Mm-hmm. But he was willing to make those 3,000 phone calls. And by the way, he got like a 1% success rate.
Right.
But he learned, and then he created a playbook, and then he hired more people, and he taught them what not to do and what to do.
Yes.
Right? Because he experienced it all. And this is back in the days where, you still were calling people on landlines. Now we have the internet, we have Google AdWords, we have mass email, so many new things that we can connect people with.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's true, for sure.
Eric, what has been the worst problem in your leadership career, and how did you accomplish getting out of it?
The worst problem in my leadership career, in relation to leading people, or
Anything in your business,
organizational
like
challenge.
maybe you were facing bankruptcy or something worse.
Never on that scale. Worst problem. I think probably some of the most challenging elements of coming into a new organization have been the culture of the organization and the culture of the team, and their inability to work effectively together. So I took over one team where I had two teams sitting in two rows next to each other that basically had the same job, and they didn't talk to each other. And
Wow.
there might have been 6 teams reporting into the manager that was there before me. None of them worked together collaboratively. The teams were, I'd say, competitive with each other in terms of, not wanting to share anything that they're working on. Certainly never collaborative. And, I am a leader who believes in the exact opposite. I believe that when people work together, when people look at their strengths and weaknesses, if they're not afraid of them and they're comfortable sharing them and they're comfortable acknowledging when they need help and where they need help, other people in the organization that are on the same team that have that skill set can help those individuals where they need help, and vice versa. And so I really like to create a team where, to as much as possible, individual success is going to come as a result of team success
Collaboration.
and collaboration.
That's the hardest thing to break through, though. Like when you come into a horrible culture like that, it's hard to change the culture. How do you do it?
Yeah, it really comes down to a number of things, and it comes down to a dialogue with the employees about trust, transparency, creating an environment where they know that they're protected by me against anything else that could happen within the organization if I'm their leader, and a non-acceptance of somebody not willing to do that. So I'm happy to work with people to change their thought patterns, to engage differently with the people, think differently about how they approach a subject or how they talk about something, create an environment where it's appropriate to share, things that you think are good or bad about what it is that we're doing. And to get the teams working together on projects that require them to work together in order to be successful. And then, bringing in team building or other things that help people understand each other better. And I'd say in the last organization, in Asigra, again, an organization that's been around for 37 years, people have been here for 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. I was really looking for rapid change here in order to help create that trust and transparency that was really required. Especially, there were deep knowledge pockets that individuals had, and there was a history, obviously, of things that went really well, things that didn't go well. But what I really wanted to avoid was, if people across the organization knew they didn't do things well, and there was landmines that we might step into as we try to push things forward, I wanted those brought forward in an open and honest way, proactively, to avoid us going down a path that was going to create, delays, longer time frames, or, we'd step into a problem and then have to work around it. And it's not easy to get people to want to come forward with the mistakes they made in the past and share them with a new leader. I, in this case, brought in a gentleman named Lance Secretan, who is a inspirational leader. He's an executive coach. He's ranked one of the top 3, I believe, coaches in North America, and is ranked, very high up as a world leader. And I brought him in to do a session with the leadership team around inspirational leadership. And I brought him in to meet with the entire rest of the organization to talk about inspiration, not just in the workplace, but in life as a whole, and how you show up in everything that you do, whether you're giving feedback to somebody, how do you give feedback in an inspirational manner? How do you be inspiring for your customers? How do you be inspiring for the people that you work with or your colleagues? And in those dialogues, we got into very deep and personal conversations around, you know, some of the most challenging moments in our lives. And they weren't work-related challenges. Most of the most challenging elements in people's lives were very personal. And how did you resolve those, or how did you work around them, or how did they impact you? And it created very, very quickly this incredible trust across the entire organization in a way that I've never seen in most organizations. I mean, it was a very, very powerful, quick transition. And today we're able to have those open and honest, good or bad conversations that allow us to move things a lot faster and to have people being a lot happier, both at home and in the workplace. And it was life-changing for people in terms of even how they approached home life, marriage, girlfriends, children. It really was quite remarkable.
It's crazy, Eric, because I have a couple of comments to say about that. Number one, we go back to learning how to love, right? Because really, it's loving unconditionally. If you really love unconditionally your partner, either at work or at home, you want the best for them and you want to collaborate to have a better future together, right? It's not a silo operation. It's not me and myself. No, it's us. And how can we do this together to make everything better? And number two, who not how. I spent well over 6 figures. I think I went past 7 figures in professional development, especially around business context. I went to all these masterminds for all these years. But one of the lessons that I learned, one of the biggest lessons that I learned the most was on my last business coach. And he was saying all the time, remember, it's who, not how. Who, not how. And this is exactly what you did. Instead of you trying to figure it out by yourself, you grabbed the best person in the world that could do it and brought him in, and boom, quick breakthrough. It would have taken you maybe 5 years to accomplish the same thing.
It would. Yeah.
And that's why I tell people, listen, if you can do something in 2 hours that takes somebody else 3 months, and you think he's charging you too much, you don't know anything about business. Because if those 2 hours are going to save you 3 months, even if you pay him what's worth for a month, or even the 3 months, it's going to be better because you're going to have the time to recuperate that revenue because you already applied that knowledge into your business. Yeah. That's the way you got to think. That's investment thinking, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because I bet he wasn't cheap.
No, he wasn't cheap. I mean, I had used him he was an executive coach to me in advance. And listen, the concepts of bringing love and caring and, compassion into the workplace in the way that we did is particularly, we've got a lot of application developers. I got a lot of comments to start about, a lot of us don't like this, warm and fuzzy, sharing our feelings, all of that. Again, risk, reward, right?
Right.
I said, I know this will be life-changing for people, regardless of whether you guys realize it or not. So all I'm asking you to do is to embrace it and participate in it wholeheartedly. Do, the readings that are required of you, show up, participate. At the end of it, if you don't like it and you didn't learn something, fine. But I'm just asking you to participate. And at the end of it, he's almost like a cult figure at our company now. And he'll show up to the company. Really, people love him. They show up to company picnics. They are appreciative, want to spend time with him, want to ask him questions, love what he was able to do for their lives.
What was his name again?
His name's Lance Secretan. I'll send you the information.
That's
post
excellent. That would be good. It's good to know for people, 'cause it's hard to find good coaches these days. I mean, you have a million coaches, but a good coach.
But by far the best coach of anyone I've ever worked with in any coaching environment, in any collaboration environment that achieved the most impactful results in the shortest period of time. Quite honestly, nothing's even come close. I would say it streamlined 5 to 10 years of people working together in a happy, comfortable environment in a matter of 6 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Eric, like almost 45 minutes went by already.
I know, it's been
Crazy, eh?
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for your time, Eric. I do want to appreciate it, and I don't want to abuse it. I know you're a very busy executive. Eric, we're going to finish the podcast with one last question.
Sure.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
If you had access to a billboard
Yep.
in front of the busiest highway on earth, imagine you're in the Gardener and you have this huge billboard and you can write anything in it. What would you write in it?
I'd probably put up the definition of inspiration versus the definition of motivation. The difference is one comes from your heart and from your mind, and what is, what inspires you as an individual and how you bring that and show up both to the workplace and everywhere you go in life. And motivation is about the carrot and the stick. It's a much more tangible metric. But the value of inspiration is the excitement, the joy, the caring that comes along with it. And along with that, opens up the door for all these other things we've talked about: the love, the risk-taking, the learning, the caring about your colleagues, the love you have for your customers. So that definition of inspiration, which is not used particularly widely in businesses to measure success, versus what you see when it comes to motivation, which I really believe should be what folks in the past did, and what the people in the future should be focused on is inspirational leadership. And there's a huge difference between the two.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I've never seen it that way. I truly believe motivation has to be repumped and refueled, and you have to, it becomes a cycle. But if you're inspired, you always have the energy to accomplish, right?
I can motivate you with better compensation. I can motivate you with more vocation. I can motivate you with tangible things. And I can, motivate you with the stick. If you don't do this, here's the consequences.
Yeah.
But if you're inspired to show up to work every day, I don't need the same stick and carrot motivation for you, right? You're showing up for a different reason. You're showing up because what you're doing in that organization is ideally providing something better in the world, and you're a part of that. And if you believe that making the world a better place in whatever capacity you're able to be a part of that is core to the values that you carry, then you're bringing a different approach to everything you do. And work becomes less work, and it becomes about something a little bit more valuable. And that's, what we bring to this world and what we leave behind.
And also you bring meaning to your life too, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
if you're just motivated to make another paycheck, what a horrible life. But if you are inspired to change the world with the little bit that you get to do, it's a life worth living, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And allows the opportunity to, be able to have, a conversation and be able to spend time with someone such as yourself that, is giving back in this way, right? And really meeting with key leaders and looking to give back to other people that are either, successful leaders today or looking to develop a career to become a leader. That what you're doing is invaluable, and it's, it's a really fantastic thing to give back, given the success that you've been able to have from your career, and others as well that you're reaching out to, who all have unique perspectives and, have found different ways and different paths to find success. It's really helpful for people to hear that and understand it. It takes the fear away. I always tell my kids, I'll be short on this one, but I always tell my kids, I say, I'm the CEO of a company. I'm also your dad. when you go into the workforce and you see that CEO, just remember he's a person. He could be a father, be married to somebody, have a complicated home life or easy home life or whatnot, but they're a person no different than you. The difference is they have a title and a different set of experiences that have allowed them to achieve that title. And if you understand that, you can relate to that person as a person. They become less a title as they do a person. And it breaks down the barriers of the boundaries of titles within organizations, which again, good ideas can come from anywhere. If you're not, encouraging that across an organization, you're also losing out on a ton of value. So I try to normalize the organizational structure in a way that it doesn't limit people from, being comfortable talking or sharing.
Beautiful. Eric, thank you so much for your valuable wisdom and your time. If people like to get in touch with you or hire your company for the services that you sell, how can they find you?
Yeah. So very easy. They can reach out to me at eric.simmons, SIMMONS, at Asigra, ASIGRA.com. I'm happy to, have a conversation with anybody who's interested, or of course, if you're interested in doing work with us, it would be a pleasure to speak to you as well.
Fantastic. Eric, God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of the week and keep changing
God bless
this
you
world.
as well. Thank you for your time.
People like you.
Yeah, it was wonderful talking to you. Have a fantastic week. Take care.
Blessings. Cheers.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.